I'm Judy Funderburk. I'm a Master Gardener volunteer with the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia, supported by Virginia Cooperative Extension. We're here in the Glen Carlin Library Community Garden. It's one of the demonstration teaching gardens for the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia. And today we are going to do a short video teaching you about winter weeds. So what is a winter weed? Winter weeds are weeds that die back in the summer. So why should we be concerned about weeds that die back? Because those weeds, before they die back, throw out thousands of seeds which just lie there dormant until winter. When winter comes, they start to germinate on any warm enough day. And throughout the winter, on any warm enough day, they will be making roots. And so winter weeds are very hard to eradicate if you don't get them early in the spring. Most winter weeds have very fine fibrous roots, and they're often very easy just to lift gently out of the ground. But we have here, if they're tight or if they're in a lawn where it might be harder to get in, you can use a hand trowel. This is a tool often used by gardeners. And this is a hori-hori knife, which has a sharp edge, and it can go lifting generally around and has a good bit of torque so that you can get your winter weeds out easily if needed. This is something more often used for something like dandelions, where you have a deep taproot and you're trying to dig down, but it could also be a lifter if you have a large plat of grasses or of winter weeds. So one other thing I wanted to say about the winter weeds before I get into talking about specific ones is that we Master Gardeners like to recommend that people use the least toxic to the environment way of removing weeds as possible. So we're asking that you not decide to use herbicides unless there's just not any other way. And we would recommend that you use pulling or digging if and when possible. And of course, do it early, because that's before the seeds have formed. Here's a winter weed called purple dead nettle. It's kind of a funny name, but it is very purple in its flower, and its leaves are shaped like another kind of weed that's called a nettle. Actually, it can be an edible plant. But dead nettle is the name of this one, and it grows it's in the mint family and has a square stem. And if you look closely, you can actually see that the stem, especially near the top, is very red. And that's one of the ways to identify purple dead nettle, is with its square red stem and its leaves that are sort of shaped in a oblong with a point. And the flowering part is close to the top, and the leaves are more closely together with the flowers at the top of the plant. Brooklyn Botanical Garden, I learned that how the name of the purple dead nettle came to be. They think the leaves do resemble, as I said before, the nettle plant that grows where is edible. These mints are unrelated to true nettles and have no sting, so that makes them dead. Henbit is often confused with purple dead nettle, as they have similar growth habits and both are in the mint family. Henbit tends to grow tall, 8 to 13 inches, and it has a square greenish purple stem and opposite leaves that are sort of broadly egg-shaped. The upper leaves encircle the stem and show small orchid-like deep pink to purple flowers which spill out from the upper leaves. It's very pretty to look at, but do not let it go to seed, as each plant can produce up to 200 baby seeds. This winter weed is called Speedwell or Veronica, and sometimes it's even called Speedwell, Veronica. It is a pretty weed that can cover a large area and actually is not nearly as likely as many of the other winter weeds to seed and cause problems. If you have an area you want to cover with something that's very pretty in the spring and stays green until the summer, this might be your plant. It's there are many varieties of Veronica Speedwell, and they are called slender speedwell, creeping speedwell, ivy speedwell, but they all are a very similar plant. The name Speedwell is thought to have come from the fact that the genus that is the Veronica americana was one that was used by early settlers and perhaps by the native people as a tonic, and it was thought to speed you to wellness. Therein lies Speedwell. It has these scalloped leaves and the bright blue flowers. They last 2 to 3 weeks, and as I said earlier, this one can be left because it does not seed nearly as readily as the other weeds we've been looking at. This is common chickweed, Stellaria media. It's a prostrate, low-growing plant. You can see that it has a little white flower, and it has rounded leaves that have a point. It's one of the ways that I'm able to recognize it, is that small pointed leaf. It grows prolifically, and it's one of those that is more difficult to eradicate. The name Stellaria, that is part of its Stellaria media, is its genus name, and it comes from the Latin for star. So that little flower is thought to be very star-like, just teeny tiny, but a star-like flower. I learned from a Brooklyn Botanic Garden post that though the plant originally came from Europe, it is now thought to be the most common weed in the world. The Botanical Garden post said that a single plant can produce 2,500 to 15,000 seeds, and the seeds can remain viable for over a decade. Do not place this weed in your compost, as birds and chickens love the seed, and you know birds and chickens both poop. But there comes the common name, chickweed, because the seed is edible. This is annual bluegrass, another winter weed, also in the catch it now category. It begins as this small, innocuous tuft of green grass, but soon will send up very slender tufts, and every one of those little tufts will turn into seeds. And these seeds are they're wind blown a bit. It also will be growing a much deeper root system. You can see now that the root system is kind of fibrous, and I easily pulled this out by hand. But once it has sat in the ground for a while and it's got more neighbors around it, it will have a big area covered, and it will be very hard to dig out a deeper root. So as I said, it's in the catch it now category. It looks pretty, but it will die back in the summer and turn brown, and you'll have brown spots if it's in your lawn, and you don't mind if it dies back, of course, if it's in your garden, but it will have already sent your seeds. So take care and dig it out, and remember that this is another one of those winter weeds. This is hairy bittercress. It's a pretty little plant, has a basal rosette, and it has tiny white flowers. However, it is always also one of those winter weeds that you really want to dig it up now. It sends up a slender stalk, and it will get about 4 or 5 inches tall, or even smaller, but it will have a seed capsule at the top. When it turns brown, when that seed capsule turns brown, if you try to dig it then, or even touch it, it explosively sends out its seeds. Its seeds will hit you in the face. They can go up to 5 feet from where the plant is. So you can see why I say hairy bittercress is a pretty plant, but you better dig it now. So that actually you don't need to dig this one. As I said before, some of these plants have sort of lightly fibrous roots. And you just get in there and wiggle it loose, and you can get the root, you're going to get more of the root system sometimes than when you dig it. And shake off the dirt. Here, I wanted to show you what fibrous roots look like. There they are, hanging out. They're not very deep, but you don't want them to get started from seed, even though it is a very pretty plant. Thank you for joining us to learn more about winter weeds. We've enjoyed sharing this information with you, and hopefully you'll have fewer weeds in your yard next year when you catch them before they seed. We're here at the Glen Carlin Library Garden, and we do have more than weeds at this garden. We'd love to share it with you at any time. It's open to the public, and it's a great teaching demonstration garden. I'd also like to recommend that if you are interested in getting a book, that's a wonderful reference for all kinds of weeds, including grassy weeds and green weeds, and it just has everything. It has the weeds when they're in their very early stages and later stages. It compares this kind of weed with that kind of weed. It's called Weeds of the Northeast, and this particular version was printed in 1997. I found out that there is a newer version coming out in October or November 2021 from Cornell Press, and you could order it ahead, or you could ask for it for a Christmas present for winter weeds. Thanks for being with us. We enjoyed sharing this with you.